Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Today I have here with me Honorable Prime Minister of East Turkestan, Government in Exile, Mr. Salih Hudayar. And I welcome you, Mr. Salih Hudayar, and Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam. Thank you for having me.
Sir, one of the maybe most persecuted community on earth today is Muslims. Generally, we call them Uygher Muslims, while it is East Turkestan the original identity. We don't know much about this community, this region. What is the historical background since when you are occupied? Kindly let us know about your country, please.
So Uyghurs are the ethnic Turkic people in East Turkestan. They are the majority of the population in East Turkestan. East Turkestan also has other Turkic peoples like Kazakhs, Kyrgyz, Uzbeks, and Tatar. East Turkestan is the name of our country, and it's been named East Turkestan since at least the 5th century. In 1949, the Chinese communists invaded and occupied East Turkestan in October 1949, and in December 22nd, 1949, our independent republic, known as the East Turkestan Republic, was overthrown by the People's Liberation Army.
And what was the reaction of the world? Because the entire world was just watching, or what?
Unfortunately, the international community largely stood silent. In fact, East Turkestan's future, you could say, was negotiated away at the Yalta Conference in 1945 between Stalin, Roosevelt, and Churchill. It was either that the Soviets would have a sphere of influence in Iran, or they would have a sphere of influence. The U.S. would have a sphere of influence in Iran, or they would have a sphere of influence in East Turkestan. And because the Iran was more politically correct for the United States to choose at that time, they stood by and pretty much allowed the Soviet Union to determine the future of East Turkestan. In fact, it was with the support of the Soviet Union that the East Turkestan Republic was invaded and occupied by Communist China in late 1949.
Sir, as we can see that your flag has a crescent and a star, and it is similar to the flag of Pakistan and Turkey. Pakistan has green background and Turkey has red background. Your name also Turkestan. Do you have an attachment to current country Turkey? Any historical attachment?
Of course, the East Turkestan is the homeland of the Turkic peoples. It's the cradle of Turkic civilization. In fact, in the 10th century, 9th, 10th centuries, when the Turks of Central Asia began to move westward into the present-day Middle East, into Anatolia, into what is now known as Turkey. So East Turkestan is known as the cradle of Turkic civilization, and it's viewed as the homeland of all Turkic peoples.
So tell me, sir, Mr. Tayyip Erdogan, the president of Turkey, is speaking too much for Ummah, and he will speak extensively on Kashmir, where there is not any as such persecution. But I don't see any statement from Turkey as a government or the president Tayyip Erdogan, who is never speaking for their own people. It is like East Turkestani people are children of Turkey or relatives of Turkey. So why they are never raising a voice for East Turkestani people and the persecution they are facing against China?
So this is mostly because of political and economic ties between China and Turkey. The Turkish government, as you said, has frequently raised the issue of Palestine, Kashmir, other Muslims across the world, but deliberately stood silent on the issue of the people in East Turkestan, the genocide that is happening in East Turkestan, and this is mostly because of a lot of economic benefits that Turkey is receiving from China in terms of, one political Turkish political party member of the parliament, he stated that Turkey had essentially sold out the Uyghurs for $50 billion. This is the amount of investment and loans that China has promised Turkey.
So, what about Pakistan? Now, Pakistan is also advocating so-called Muslim Ummah rights, and Pakistan is also selective. Actually, Pakistan is a colony of China right now, and China has all say of Pakistan's foreign policy and everything. So, why Pakistan, being advocate of Ummah, is not speaking about the persecution that Uyghur community or East Turkestani people are facing against China?
Again, it's the same thing. Because of China's Belt and Road Initiative, and even before that, Pakistan is a so-called all-weather ally of China, and so because of this relationship, China is hesitant to upset. I mean, Pakistan is hesitant to upset China, and pretty much turns a blind eye to the persecution of Uyghurs and other Turkic Muslims in East Turkestan. Not stopping there, the Pakistani government also has deported hundreds of Uyghurs to back to East Turkestan, to Chinese-occupied East Turkestan, where many of them were either executed or thrown into prison, and in more recent cases, probably thrown into concentration camps.
Now, coming to the basic question, main question. The world wants to know what's happening to Turkestani people. The world wants to know what is this story of concentration camp. What are the persecution? Kindly tell us, let us know what are in details that what are the persecution. What is this story? Horrible stories of these concentration camps.
So essentially, what China is doing in East Turkestan is colonization and genocide. This has been going on at least since 1949, when the Chinese communists invaded and took over East Turkestan. But in more recent years, with the expansion of China's Belt and Road Initiative, the Chinese government has gotten a great fear, and that's the fear of East Turkestan becoming independent once more. And this is detailed in their national defense strategy over the past several years, including last year. They made it one of their top national defense goals is to prevent the independence of East Turkestan. East Turkestan is the cornerstone of China's Belt and Road Initiative. Without East Turkestan, China's Belt and Road Initiative, which is its ambitious geopolitical dream of Chinese dream, achieving the Chinese dream, and becoming the world's most, powerful economic, military, and political power. Without, East Turkestan, China can't achieve its dream. And by recognizing this, the Chinese government fears that if the people of East Turkestan are given any kind of option, we will ultimately choose independence. And fearing that, the Chinese government has locked up over 3 million people, in at least 3 million, in concentration camps, in forced labor camps, and prisons. Our people are being used as slave labor. They've taken over 500,000 children of our children, separated them from their families, and sent them to state-run orphanages and boarding schools to be raised as loyal Chinese citizens. It doesn't stop there. They've placed 1.12 million Chinese officials into our homes to live as, quote, relatives, and ensure our loyalty to the state. Tens of thousands of Uyghur and other Turkic women are being forcibly married to Chinese men. And if you refuse, they're going to throw you and your entire family into these concentration camps, which the Chinese government calls re-education or vocational training centers. They're sterilizing both men and women, which is an act of genocide as defined in the UN Genocide Convention. They're harvesting the organs of political prisoners. They've been doing this for decades, but especially over the past several years, since the building of over 1,400 concentration camps across East Turkestan, starting in 2017. The Chinese government is harvesting the organs of select detainees in these camps and prisons and selling them, to people across the world, including Muslims, exclusively selling them to Muslims as, quote, halal organs, end quote.
How much is the population of East Turkestan?
So this is a contentious issue because there is no real census that has been done in East Turkestan. The Chinese government claims that the official population of East Turkestan is 24.5 million, with roughly about 12 million Uyghurs and 1.5 million other Turkic peoples, including Kazakhs, Kyrgyz, and Uzbeks. However, we believe that the true population of Uyghurs and other Turkic peoples is anywhere from 35 to 40 million. Back in 1947, our former East Turkestan Republic stated that our population at that time was about 7 to 8 million. So you would think the population would grow. But what's more alarming is in 2018, the Chinese government state media Xinhua stated that the Chinese government collected, the DNA samples, voice prints, and retina scans of 36 million people in East Turkestan. Those 36 million people are non-Chinese people, which means that shows the true population, give or take, minus probably you have to add a couple more million, including, because they only targeted people between the ages of 12 to 65, I believe, for this DNA collection. So our population is more likely around 40 million.
And what is the percentage of Muslims in this population?
So out of our own population, out of the Turkic peoples in East Turkestan, I would say about 98, maybe 98% of the population is Muslim.
So, when you will attain your rights and independence and Republic of Turkestan, would it be a Islamic Republic and would it be these days the Taliban's and ISIs and Boko Haram? So, what is the ideology of Muslims of either they are also of that extremist line or they are Sufist and coexistence and these?
So most of our people, I would say 99% of our population, in fact, more than 99% of our population are Sunni Hanafi Muslims, the most liberal form of Sunni Islam. They don't have any religious extremism ideologies. In fact, at the time of when we lost our independence, our former East Turkestan Republic was a secular republic which guaranteed religious freedom for all of its people. And historically, East Turkestan has been a region where multiple religions have coexisted. In fact, the Uyghur people, before we became Muslim, we were at one point we were Christians, Nestorian Christians. At one point we were Buddhists. At one point we were shamanists. Ultimately, we believe that the future for our state is like it was before, a ethnic, state that supports and ensures basic human rights, freedom, and including religious freedom and democracy to all of its people.
East Turkestan is rich in natural resources. That's why China. So what are the natural resources of this is a country, and is China exploiting all these resources extensively?
Absolutely. China has been exploiting our resources since they initially invaded and occupied East Turkestan. In fact, in 1954, the Chinese government set up the Bingtuan, which is known as the Xinjiang Paramilitary Production Corps, which is today a 3.5 million strong paramilitary force that is exclusively responsible for colonizing East Turkestan and exploiting its resources. Our natural resources include gold, uranium, natural gas, oil, coal, cotton, tungsten, silver, nickel, other resources that are being now exploited over the past decade is wind power and solar energy, which is powering Chinese cities across, eastern China.
Sir, with this movement of independence of East Turkestan, the world is not that much aware. Now, for example, there are so many issues going on. Uh, where are these Turkestani people who are struggling? I mean, on the ground also, we don't see as such any resistance. So, what do you plan? How do you plan to get your independence, sir?
So as far as being able to resist, up until really the late 90s, our people were able to resist in some ways against the Chinese occupation forces, and we have consistently resisted since the Chinese invaded and occupied East Turkestan. However, especially with the building of these concentration camps and the total police state in East Turkestan, with checkpoints every 500 meters, um, cameras on every corner. It's very difficult to resist in any physical way. Even saying the term East Turkestan is described by China as an act of terrorism, and will get you sent to prison. You can't even gather without 3, 4 people can't even gather in one place without getting permission from the Chinese state. In our cars, we have mandatory GPS trackers. Every household has only one knife chained to the walls of their kitchen with a barcode etched onto them that has all of their household's information on them. Furthermore, your cell phones have a mandatory government app that tracks everything that you do on your cell phone, all your calls. So there's internally there it's very difficult to resist. Externally, we have been resisting in terms of engaging in advocacy, in terms of organizing events, demonstrations, and so forth. What we need right now is how we envision restoring East Turkestan's independence is to one, having the international community recognize the fact that East Turkestan is an occupied country and using international law to uphold our rights, recognizing the atrocities as a genocide, and getting support from from governments across the world like India, through diplomacy, political support, and financial support to assist us in establishing, strengthening our government in exile, strengthening our movement, and leveraging, full international laws to push back against China.
East Turkestan, when we see the map, I think the longest border you have is with India. And
Uh, the longest border that we have is with, I believe, Kazakhstan, and then it might be India.
yeah. So, how are your relationships with India? And are there some Hindus also in East Turkestan? And how India is doing for your cause?
So once historically, East Turkestan and India have a long, friendly relation ties of friendly relations of cultural and economic exchanges. That's why you see a lot of similarities in terms of some words that we use, in terms of some foods that we eat, in terms of some way in the way that we dress as well. However, in 1949, when China invaded and occupied East Turkestan, India was the first country to open its doors to our refugees. Most of our refugees later on moved to Turkey and other places across the world, which was a strategic mistake in that part of our leadership at the time. However, over the years, India has not taken a path like our other neighboring countries, which immediately, if there's refugees fleeing, they would immediately be deported to China. India hasn't done that. Um, India at the moment, the people of India are still not aware of our situation. They don't know too much about East Turkestan, but there's a lot that the Indian government can do. For example, by offering us the similar support to that they offer to the Tibetan exile government and the Tibetan community. That's definitely a way that they can start on pushing our issue.
Sir, in Pakistan, we have a poet which whom we call poet of Islam and poet of Pakistan. He wrote a poem and it says that एक हूँ मुस्लिम हरम की पासबानी के लिए नील के साहिल से लेके ताबा खाक काशगर तक. Kashgar is East Turkestan.
Yes.
And the message we get from his poetry is that Muslims are one ummah from Kashgar till Nile, the river Nile of Egypt. Now, my question is, where is Ummah now? Because Kashgar and East Turkestan is occupied by a brutal Chinese forces who are ruining the religious identity of this community. Where is Ummah and how do you persuade Ummah to come and help you?
So the Ummah, as I mentioned earlier before, they're largely silent. No Muslim country has spoken out against China on our issue. In fact, at the UN, both last year and this past summer, they signed on to a letter praising China's so-called human rights advancements in East Turkestan, and even countries like Palestine supported this. Pakistan supported this. At this point, the Ummah has largely forgotten. I think it's in some way non-existent at this point. As far as persuading them, again, it's really going to take a lot. We don't have a lot of financial resources or money to throw to these people like China, to these countries. China is investing hundreds of billions of dollars into Pakistan, in like Pakistan, the Middle East, and other countries, and ultimately buying their silence. Um, if they really care about the ummah, this should be the first priority. You know, there is no such atrocity and oppression against Muslims in the world like that in East Turkestan. I mean, mosques are being destroyed, Qurans are being burned. Even saying the term Assalamu alaikum is a reason for you to be sent to a concentration camp. Even having a name like Muhammad, Fatima, stuff like that is the reason for you to be sent to a concentration camp. And these are all atrocities that the Muslim world is aware of. The Organization for Islamic Cooperation, OIC, is fully aware. But despite all the evidence, despite everyone knows this, they continue to remain silent.
Sir, we have about 200 million Muslims in India also. And these Muslims staged a protest against killing of an Iranian general in Iraq. They held a protest of tens of thousands of people in India, the Muslims. Muslims of India, they project themselves as representatives of Ummah. Now, other countries of Ummah, they have constraints because their state policy is lenient to China and they are in debt of China or whatsoever. Here, the Muslims of India, their country's policy against China is not as friendly now, and it is an confrontational policy now. So, why Muslims of India are showing this hypocrisy and they are not raising voice or they are not raising against their own government that go and help our Muslim brothers in East Turkestan? Why Indian Muslims are not raising voice for you?
I think mostly it's because they might be unaware of the situation. I know that we have spoken and reached out to some Muslim student organizations in India, and they're slowly becoming aware of the situation. I think the main issue here about others, countries, Muslims in countries where the state doesn't support a policy of friendliness with China, they're simply unaware, or they are not too well informed about what's going on, or they just don't want to raise the issue. It's really unclear.
Your neighboring country, Tibet, is also occupied. Is there any cooperation or united efforts between Tibetans and East Turkestanis, or they are doing their struggle individually and you are doing your individually? How do you see Tibet struggle?
We're actually cooperating on many levels. We've been cooperating, especially over the past several years. We've been extensively cooperating with Tibetan communities and organizations across the world. both of us, like you said, are under Chinese occupation. So it's mutually beneficial that we work together and cooperate to oppose China's occupation of our countries. The Tibetans, they are much more, you know, more. The world is much more aware of their situation because they have a figure like the Dalai Lama, but also because countries across the world, like the United States, India, and others, have recognized the fact that Tibet is occupied by China to a certain extent. They receive a lot of financial diplomatic support from countries like the United States, European countries, Canada, and even India. Unfortunately, we haven't yet gotten that type of support, but I think in the near future that we will, and I think it'll open more room for cooperation.
Uh, Hong Kong, another story, because Hong Kong is a different case than Tibet and East Turkestan. What are your, as a statement from your country, how do you see the Hong Kong issue and what is your message to Hong Kong people?
So our message to the Hong Kong people is that they need to strive for their independence because the Chinese government will never honor any of its agreements. I mean, they promised autonomy to East Turkestan and to Tibet, and to this day, the only thing that autonomy has brought us in name is genocide, colonization, and the deaths of millions of our people, the exploitation of our land and resources. If they really want, you know, true human rights, true freedom, and maintain their existence, independence is the only way that's going to bring that human rights, that's going to bring democracy, and maintain their existence as a separate nation.
Any support from Indian government? Maybe there are some support from NGOs or small non-governmental actors, but is there any support from governmental level from India?
At the moment, the Indian government hasn't really offered any substantial support on our issue. They have, you know, I think the Indian media is, you know, raising the issue, but the Indian government, I think, still is, you know, working out its own new strategy on how they want to deal with China. So, but we hope to see that in the near future that they will support our issue and that they will support both East Turkestan and Tibet.
My last question for today's session is that recently United States of America has recognized East Turkestan government in exile and has facilitated many things. How significant is this act of United States of America, and do you have such support from other countries also, European Union and other countries?
So just to be correct, the United States government hasn't officially supported the East Turkestan government in exile in any capacity. They, however, you know, allow us to carry out our activities here in a democratic manner. They supported some of our efforts. You know, when we urged them to sanction the CPC, the Bing Tuan, sanction Chinese officials, pass the Uyghur Human Rights Policy Act. These are all initiatives that the U.S. government has supported, but it's still in the process. I think once we can get the U.S. Congress to formally recognize East Turkestan as an occupied country, the U.S. government will also recognize the East Turkestan government in exile in an official capacity.
Any other country is in similar situation to help you?
We're hoping that Japan and other countries in the EU, including Canada, will also follow suit. It's just right now they are still learning more about the situation, understanding where East Turkestan is, what our people are demanding, and what is ultimately the best option, you know, to safeguard and protect our people's basic human rights, freedoms, and overall existence.
So, as we understand, current East Turkestan government in exile is in Washington.
Yes.
Thank you very much, Mr. Hudayar, and it was a pleasure. And you have cleared many things on my mind, on my viewers' mind, and I hope that it will bring awareness among people that we need to support this humanitarian cause, because these people are most peaceful people of the world, and they are not any disturbance to anyone. So we should support this cause, and we should bring harmony to these people who are persecuted by terrorist communist Chinese. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you, sir.